Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Online OffStream Podcast. We're here with our 10th episode. I'm
Let's go.
Razi, and we have.
I'm Estella.
Hello,
Happy 10th
everybody. 10th
episode.
episode.
Woohoo,
Woo!
and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yeah. So, when this episode's
Woohoo.
out, it is going to be the new year. It'll literally be January 1st of
That's
2025, which
crazy.
is insane.
Absolutely
Um,
insane.
I can't believe a whole year has gone by.
It's insane. I feel like this year has had so many ups and downs and lefts and rights. And like every day it's like, oh, 2024. What a year.
What a year. Oh my
And oh, it's
God.
over. It's crazy.
2024 has definitely been an insane one. Like, oh my God, there's just so much that happened this year. Like, from
Yeah.
listening to the podcast, you all know that Estella and I have had a wonderful time together, going on many
Yes.
different adventures, different places, traveling a lot, which was great. But then there's been stuff behind the scenes that we haven't really talked about on the podcast or haven't just been able
Yeah.
to talk about yet on the podcast. And then, real life, real world situations like fucking election and
Yeah.
everything else. Like 2024 has just been insane.
It's
And
been insane. I was talking about this with a friend of mine literally yesterday. It's like there's so much to be grateful for certain experiences that happened this year, but there's also a lot to be grateful that is over, Like
yeah,
we had so many amazing moments and there's a lot that I look back on and I have so much gratitude to have been able to experience. And there's been a lot of really high highs, but the low lows have been very low.
yeah.
um, so I feel like moving into 2025, it's like there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of anxiety, but it's also nice to just know that like 2024 as a whole, we could say, oh, that was a year, and we can move on.
Yeah, it's like coming into 2024 definitely started the year with knowing less people. Going
Yeah,
into 2025 is going to be a little bit easier because I feel like I have stronger connections and like
yeah,
know more people and, like kind of
yeah.
ease into the new year knowing that I have all of these like different cool amazing people in my life.
Yeah, I feel like this year, 2024, like we had the opportunity to get to know the people that we already knew on such a deeper level, but then also we were introduced to so many new people and have created new bonds and new friendships, that are going to continue to grow into the new year. That I don't know, it feels like even though this year has been so up and down, and I know both of us have gone through many different kinds of situations where we've had to say goodbye to some people that we thought we would be bringing into 2025 with us.
Hmm.
um, Both of us, I think, are looking at 2025 in the optimistic way of like there's a lot of gratitude for the people that we've met this year, and those friendships that can only continue to grow and
Yeah,
can only continue to enrich our lives rather than hurt us.
right,
you
exactly.
know, we I think all of us this year have had a lot of moments of pause and reflection. And I think both of us specifically are moving into 2025 definitely in a better spot than we were earlier this year.
Exactly, yes. And so, with that being said, that will bring us into the actual topic of our episode today. So, episode 10, we talked about in the past that we kind of want to do like topic episodes where
Yeah,
we talk about a specific topic and whatnot. And so we've decided that today's episode is kind of going to be like the relationship episode.
yeah,
Relationships like can be romantic relationships or relationship with
friendship.
friends, relationships with ourselves, and like, kind of like how we deal with them,
Yeah,
how we've had to deal with them, and just like, I don't know, like how we want things to be and work in the next year.
yeah. Going into 2025, first episode, we're kicking it off with a bang, if you
Doing
will.
our topics.
Uh, doing our topics. We've been talking about wanting to do that for a while, and I think this is the perfect opportunity to kind of start our goals off for the new year with,
Hmm.
with our intention setting of wanting to have topics per episode. And I think this topic, because so much of this past year for both of us has been many different kinds of relationships and growing as people within those relationships and then post some of those relationships. I think going into 2025 as our first episode, it's I think the most appropriate way to kick off. Because I think both of us have grown a lot as people in the last year, and I mean, just as kind of the obviously your friend, but also seeing you from the outside, right? It's like I've seen a lot of growth and change of in who you are as a person. Um, that is inspiring, and I think
Aw.
our listeners will be excited to hear about some of that, and not necessarily in a like messy tea spilling way. Not really. We've done that off camera. um, but in a like, you know, the things that we've gone through this year can really change how we perceive the world. And I think
Hmm.
you've done a really inspiring job of that through this year.
I feel like it's the same with you though too, because like you've definitely gone through things this year for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, it's been a rough one. It's been a tough one. Uh, and like you have kind of, I feel like the person that like the version of you that I knew at the beginning of this year, kind of towards the end of last year, like who you are now is like a more improved version of that person that you were, and like in a better place. Maybe not like where you want to be,
Yeah.
but definitely in like a better place in a better spot, and you are like taking care of you, which is important, instead of like focusing on other people who necessarily may not be able to give you that same amount of like care that you need for yourself. And so that's
Yeah.
important, and like you are doing good, and that is also
Thank
very like
you.
inspirational.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm blushing. You guys can't see me, but I'm blushing. No, it's true, and I do attest a lot of my growth personally this year with our friendship and being able to have real people back us up, like
Hmm.
real the ride or dies, right? Like making those friendships that unfortunately have had to be like proven and tested this year, which is never fun, but knowing that like in those moments having somebody stand up for you or having somebody back you up and confirm your fears and affirm those things in the most like authentic way. Unfortunately, that had to happen a lot this year. But through that, I know I can look back and say, like, I know that I made it through XYZ because of the true, honest support. And I think this year has had that, unfortunately, tested multiple times,
Hmm.
you know, but because of all of that, going into the new year, it's like looking back, I see those moments where our friendship specifically has had to kind of overcome external whatever that I think we both really did actively show up for each other.
Yeah.
Um, and that makes a big difference in kind of finding your footing through those hard moments and
Yeah.
being able to grow as an individual isn't it's not easy ever, but it's significantly harder when you don't have that support. And I know from my experience, you've been a big support in all of the things that have happened this year to me. And
I'll
boy,
always
have
take
we been
care of
on
the
a journey.
besties.
Oh,
It's always the thing of like, yeah, relationships are always a two-way street kind of thing.
yeah.
I don't know if it's two-way street or two-way streak. I never know which one it is, but I
Two-way street,
two-way
like with a
street
T.
with the okay, okay,
Yeah.
because I say
Yeah.
two-way streak sometimes, and I'm like, Sure, whatever that means."
Sure. Yeah.
It's a two-way street, and so it's like one person can't be doing all of the work, and the other person just kind of like can do whatever the fuck they want. Like that's not how
Yeah.
that works. It's not fair to one of the parties, in the relationship. And I think like this year, like for you, there was definitely cases where it was like one person was doing all of the work and the other
Yes.
person wasn't, and like that's not fair at all, because that takes a lot. Like any sort of relationship, any sort of friendship or whatever can be like mentally taxing, you know, like
Yeah.
not necessarily in a bad way, but it does take a lot. Like it's a whole different person, you know, like you're dealing with
Yeah.
somebody new. It's not you who it's like, okay, you know, if I don't want to do whatever, then who cares kind of thing, right? Like you can
Right.
essentially at the end of the day you could brush off your own feelings. But when it comes to a different person, then it's like you have to kind of like be careful and work around like their boundaries and stuff like that because you want to be respectful of them. um but like if they're not doing that to you, then it's like that's not really fair. That's kind of messed up, and
Yeah.
so it's like things fall apart very quickly if that's the situation.
Yeah, and I definitely think that when there's an opportunity to kind of talk about those things, right, with another person. I mean, I feel like friendships as a whole, like relationships don't have to be just romantic. I really look at every friendship, every interaction with somebody as its own individual relationship
Yeah,
because there are two people,
right.
because there are two people with very valid emotions, feelings, boundaries, etc. Um, so it's like when you have that opportunity to listen to somebody else and how they're feeling about something, and they tell you how they're feeling and you choose not to listen. I feel like that unfortunately happened a lot this year to both of us,
Hmm.
where we tried our best to communicate as effectively as possible to many different people in many different situations, and some people listened and some people didn't.
Yeah.
And when you want to have that true, honest connection and friendship with somebody, or if it's in a romantic relationship, like that's my first thing always is communication. I'm like, you can, if you need extra support this week, that's totally fine. It doesn't have to be 50-50 split, tit for tat. It doesn't have to be that
Right.
because everything, it ebbs and flows, right? But if you need something, say something, right? If you're not able to show up on a phone call, if you're not able to respond to text for whatever reason, totally fine.
Yeah.
Like everybody goes through stuff, but communicate because then it doesn't immediately go to, oh, they're ignoring me, they're mad at me,
Some
etc.,
people are
etc.
very much um like I feel like at the end of the day everybody does expect something. uh it could be like a small thing, it could be a big thing or whatever, right? But
Yeah.
for the people that are like, oh, I don't ask for anything or I don't say anything because I'm not expecting anything, but then kind of like down the road get upset about something or whatnot, it's like, well, you're not speaking your mind. You're not telling me what it is that you want from me. I'm not a mind
Yeah.
reader. Nobody's a mind reader. So nobody's going to understand what it is that you want.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, you got to like speak up and communicate that with people too, because there are people out there that do
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is something that I've come across in many different situations, specifically this year, and maybe it's because I live in LA. Like it could just be an LA thing. But the kind of like fake humble, right, where they don't ask for anything, they don't want anything, but then they use that against you,
Mm,
where it's like, I don't ask for anything in the friendship. I'm not ask like if you want to hang out with me, you can hang out with me, but I don't need you energy, you
right.
know? And then later down the line, they're like, well, this person never texts me. This person never reaches out to me for like whatever. It's like, that's not an actual balance of friendship. That
Yeah.
is playing the victim,
Right.
is
Literally.
what
Yeah.
that is.
You're just being
So,
fake.
literally. So I feel like unfortunately that's also been a big kind of touch point that I've noticed specifically in friendships this year.
Yeah.
Um, the playing the victim in every at every opportunity where it's a possibility, people play the victim, which is not helpful, and it's not kind to people who have actually been friends for, friends for a week, friends for 4 years, whatever. It's
Yeah.
still not okay to do.
It's not an okay thing to do at all. Like, it's very messed up and it fucks with people's heads for sure. Like, because you think that you are, well, some people are just oblivious to the fact that they're doing it, some people aren't. But
Right.
it definitely comes down to a matter of like, I personally feel like the older we get, the more in touch with yourself you should be, so that it's like if
Yes.
you're doing something wrong or something that's like common knowledgely a wrong thing to do, then you would catch
Yeah.
up on it and you would realize. But some people unfortunately aren't like that. They don't like cue into these things and don't pick up on like the self destructive behavior, like the self
Yeah.
problematic behavior that they're like showing off kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot, I think, for people to pause and self-reflect in the first place. You know, having that moment of like, oh, am I doing what I'm intentionally doing? Am I doing something accidentally? Whatever it is, there has to be a moment where it turns on for somebody. Like there's a switch that has to flip for somebody to be able to pause and say like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
You know, either good or bad, you know, destructive or not. There has to be a self-awareness that has to
It's like
turn on
the
at
yeah,
some
the
point.
self-reflection, like self-reflection is very important. Like
Yeah.
I do not care if people think that it's childish or unnecessary or whatnot. Like self reflection is so good. It is so important. Like it is something
Yeah.
everybody should be practicing. There are a lot of
Yeah.
people out there that are like, "Oh, I already understand myself. I know what I'm like and blah blah blah." But then like show very destructive behaviors or are very problematic, and they could be the kindest sweetest people, but they keep repeating the same patterns over and over and over again, and that is a problem. And it's like you
Yeah.
are clearly not in tune with yourself enough or like self-reflecting enough for you to realize, oh hey, like I need to stop doing what I'm doing. Instead it's
Yeah.
just like um a oh, why are people like leaving me? Why aren't people staying around kind of thing? Like,
Yeah.
like I don't understand why I can't keep somebody around kind of thing. And it's like, well, because
Because you're behaving
you
poorly.
you may think that you understand yourself, but clearly you don't
Yeah.
understand yourself enough to know that you are behaving poorly.
Yeah. I think this year in particular, for me anyway, I feel like self-reflection was very much at the forefront because I had multiple instances that kind of fell under the same category of like we were mentioning before of um, you know, other people kind of just take,
Hmm.
and I was giving my best in those moments, even through hard things happening offline. I was always trying my best to stay in contact with people or stay connected to somebody. Um, and they didn't give back even, 2%
Right.
or 10% or whatever of what I was giving them. And again, I don't look at things for like a tit for tat 50-50. It doesn't have to be that all the time.
Right.
But when you get on towards like 6 months, 7 months of like 2 years, whatever, like at, a 10% when I'm giving you my best, which can sometimes be 70%,
Yeah.
I can't give my 100 all the time. But when that pattern keeps repeating, I had to step back and say, why do I let myself like continue this?
Yeah.
And I
Why am I
said,
giving
fuck that.
somebody like so much of myself when they're giving me like nothing in return?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and this was a pattern in both friendship and in kind of romantic relationships as well. It's like, okay, why am I putting myself in that seat?
Hmm.
And a lot of self-reflection, lots of separation, unfortunately, this year. Um, but I know I am definitely better for it because I have friends who actually treat me with like respect.
Yeah.
Crazy
That's
concept.
that's the thing too, right? It's like not only is like communication an important thing in
Yeah.
relationships, but respect. Respect
Yes.
is also like a huge thing in relationships that you should have.
Yes.
Like respect yourself and respect the person that you are having the relationship with.
Absolutely. Yeah.
People just seem to lack these things nowadays,
They
I
really
find,
do.
in my opinion.
It's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. And I really feel like the people who do lack them are missing out on some really amazing friendships and some really amazing opportunities
Yeah.
um, because of their own, I mean, I feel like it's
I
a big word for
I've
Elmo, but negligence. Like,
yeah, like it's their own downfall. Like
yeah,
they just do it to themselves. Based off of relationships that we have dealt with in our past,
Yes.
I find, like, I don't know if it's the same for you, but I find that they do it to themselves.
Yes.
And so it's like, sorry, babes, but like, not much I can do, you know?
Yeah. No, the self-destructive behavior is very, very visible in certain people, and you can have a certain amount of empathy for it, but it doesn't automatically mean that it's our responsibility to fix.
Yeah.
Um, that is another lesson learned, is it's like I can support to the best of my ability, but I can't fix. It's not my responsibility to take that on as
Yeah,
a person.
exactly.
I can care, but I don't, it's not my
I
problem.
like I was in a relationship where it felt like I was there to fix their problems, like I was there to just kind of be like a a placeholder, I guess, or to just be that like person that if anything were to go wrong or if they like were being too destructive or whatever, they could just look at me and be like, okay, at least I have this person. So if things go wrong, they could fix it for me, kind of thing. Right. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, because like I have my own things that I need to deal with. I will
Yeah.
absolutely do my best to help you with whatever situations that like you're dealing with, but not everything should fall on the other party in the relationship kind of thing, right? It's like everybody has their
Yeah.
own problems to deal with. And when you're in a any sort of mainly like romantic relationships is how I'm looking at it, but when you're in a relationship with them, like you kind of share like helping each other instead of all of it
Of
falling
course.
onto the one person. And so it's like
Yeah.
that's not a good thing to do to somebody.
No, no, it is not. No, and I mean, I feel like it can be applicable in many different relationships, but primarily when you're choosing to dedicate that part of your life to somebody,
Hmm.
that isn't that isn't a healthy balance of respect. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the reality of it, is it's like, and when I say respect, I don't mean like a in an authoritarian kind of respect, like, oh, you
Right.
have to respect
You
me.
have to
It's very
respect me
much,
kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah. I don't mean it like that. I mean it very much like common ground. We're both humans. We both have our own feelings. We both have our own concerns. And acknowledging that is being respectful.
Yeah.
I don't mean it in an authoritarian way, but in those moments, it can immediately turn to that kind of, I guess, anger could be the word that I'm looking for, of like
Hmm.
when somebody is being that kind of disrespectful, I think it immediately turns into that, like, you're not respecting me and my needs.
Yeah.
Um,
You start
and
to
that is
look
a
with
fair
them
feeling.
with storms in your eyes. That's a Taylor Swift lyric.
Come on, lyric quote. But yeah, it's true. It's very, very true.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Estella and I have kind of talked about like uh, not giving like unless we feel open doing about it. We're not
yeah,
going to give like specifics about like personal relationships that we've dealt with, but I have decided that I'm kind of going to be like open about things. And so
yeah,
majority of my community knows, majority of people know. For those of you that are new listening to the podcast that might not know, I can't even say that it's recent anymore. It's not really recent anymore, but a couple
it's
months
within the
ago,
last year. It's recent, in my opinion.
it's been like what 4 months now, I think. Um
Just about, yeah,
August, September, October, November, December, 5 months.
yeah. I can math. 2 gay can't math, you know.
I did end a 2.5 year relationship with somebody this year. Um, and it kind of, not even kind of, it very much is fucking around with me. Like, I have been very depressed because of it. I have not been in a good mental health space because of it. But I've been like taking a break because of it. I feel like giving yourself to somebody for 2.5 years takes a lot, like when
Yeah,
you're in a relationship with somebody, like a romantic relationship with someone, you try to take care of yourself, but you focus more on taking care of the other person and being there for the other person, right? And so it feels like for a good 2.5 years, I've lost parts of myself because of what I was trying to do during the relationship and who I was trying to be
Yeah.
during that relationship. And so it's definitely been tough since I ended things, and like the recovery process is definitely going to be a long one. It's not going to be a speedy one, unfortunately. I wish it
Right.
was. But I've just been on like a road of like trying to self heal and work on myself and get back to who I was and like who I want to be. Um, and not necessarily like distract myself with things, but to kind of help get my like I've been doing things to help get my mind off of the hurt and the pain and the feel.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, like we decided relationships would be a good one because we both have been dealing with like pretty
Some
intense
intense.
feelings based off of
Yeah.
relationships that we've had kind of like end this year in 2024.
Yeah.
And so we've both been on like a very self reflective journey ourselves,
Absolutely.
dealing with a little bit of hurt and heartbreak for sure. And it just like based off of the situations, it's messed with us for sure. I could say.
Definitely.
Um,
I mean, I think, I also want to say I don't want to speak too much like speaking for you, right? I can only speak for my experience of the situation. But I think also a big thing specifically in your recovery process,
mhm,
in a little
my
bit with
recovery
some of the situations,
process.
a little bit of my situation is it's like unfortunately some things were very public.
Yeah,
And I think that has definitely been a factor uh, in how we've had to heal and process
yeah,
since certain events transpired, um, because they were
it's
certain things were public.
yeah,
Um, and I think when you're like online as a creator, sometimes you don't always think about it, especially on Twitch. I think people get very close to us and are very we're very human on our streams. Even though you're a VTuber and
hmm
people aren't seeing your face, you're very human, right? Your
yeah,
content is very human. People see my face, they're right there. It's like being on a FaceTime
yeah,
chat, right? So people get comfortable with us. And so it's like dealing with public situations when there's so much more that the audience, the listeners don't know,
right,
um, added a whole different layer of, I don't want to say panic, but a different layer of stress, I think,
yeah,
to many of the situations that we dealt with this year because there was potential for things to get very
messy or go
publicly
wrong.
messy when it was already a public situation.
Right, yeah. And
Yeah.
that's like I think that's another thing too that like fucks with people so much more is that like when things are so public too, usually when you're like in my situation or like anybody's situation really, when you're dating somebody, it's usually more of like a private thing, right? Like
Yeah.
only your like immediate friends know, your close immediate friends kind of thing. Like sometimes your family knows. But being a content creator and being online, like everybody knows, like
Yeah.
everybody sees your business, everybody sees everything. And it's like you could choose to keep it private, but then that kind of like makes things tough and
Yeah.
like you can't be fully open and honest, stuff like that. And I don't really want to hide that from anybody. I know you don't want to hide
Yeah.
that from anybody either because
No.
we both like to be like fully open and honest with our communities.
Yes.
But it's like, yeah, when things like a breakup happen or you stop being friends with somebody happens in like a very public space, it's even worse in my opinion. I think like it's so much harder because then you have people who like, may not be around in your community as much and have not like they haven't heard the news, and then they come around and they're like making a joke about so and so, and then it's like, "Oh,
You're like,
yeah,
actually,
about that.
yeah,
Like this
yeah,
happened 2 months ago. Great. Like I
yeah,
wasn't thinking about it, but now I'm thinking about it. Like
right,
amazing.
yeah.
It's
No, I
tough
think
for
it
sure.
brings a different level also of being perceived.
Yeah.
Uh, because I mean, I never want to hide anything from my audience. I never want to, I'm very much an open book in a lot of ways, but I do feel like when it comes to interpersonal relationships, there's a certain amount of like awareness that I have where it's like you never know who's listening, you never know who's watching.
Hmm.
There's always that kind of cloud over content creation for me where it's like you never really know. You're seeing usernames, you get to know people. You never really know until you take that a step further and become friends with somebody, right? It's
Yeah.
a whole different thing. Um, and I think this year in particular, when there were multiple instances of public separation, I I made a very conscious choice to not fully discuss it. I just kind of let it happen. Because I didn't want there to be direct attention on certain things.
Hmm.
um, Obviously, some of my public separations this year were very different contexts than your public separation. Um, just based off of like how interaction with our communities were, etc.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
broke
yeah,
up
I
with
just
someone.
yes, for the better. Um, but for me, it was very much like if it comes up, I'm just not going to give it more light to protect myself. And I know I made that choice, which wasn't my instinct originally. I was like, I'll talk about it because I like to keep things very open.
Hmm.
But then I was like, I need to heal a little bit more before I'm willing to talk about this. So I think going into 2025 and this being our first 2025 episode, I think it also shows that both of us have, even though we obviously are processing things still,
Yeah.
we're in a good healing direction to even be willing to talk about it in a quote unquote public environment as
Right.
well.
Yeah. Um, yeah. It's been nice. Like being in a public situation, like I said earlier, kind of fucks with you. Like when you have like the news of, you're not friends with anybody, or you broke up with somebody, or like, you're not talking to a colleague or mutual or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But then also the support that you get from being in a public
Yes.
spot. Like the amount of people that have reached out to me and are like, like the fact that you know that you're hurting and are willing to step away from everything to take care of yourself and be good to yourself and be kind to yourself is
Yeah.
important. That's like that makes you strong, and like that's such a healthy thing to do and whatnot. And I'm like, that's so freaking sweet. Like I didn't even think about it like that. Like I was like, I
Yeah.
just need to leave the place that's been hurting me, and
Yeah.
need to get away from things. Like I didn't even realize that it was just like a I truly am being good to myself by realizing that I am hurting and need to step away from the situation.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, like the people that this people in those public spaces can be very supportive as well, and that kind of support system you get from them is amazing and definitely very healing for sure.
Yes, definitely. I know that our communities are so both of because we also share a lot of our community, which is always very special.
Yeah,
But like our communities have truly been so they've really rallied around us through some of these really hard times.
yeah. Except
And
for our moderators, your stinky pee pee poo poo.
yeah, the stinkies. um,
Just kidding. I needed to make the episode a little bit like heartfelt, silly, goofy. I feel like it's kind
silly
of a
goofy.
depressing episode.
I don't think it's depressing. I think it's talking about it's very real, which is what
We're
our
being
goal is.
super real.
Being very real right now. Um, but no, our communities have really rallied around us, and they have brought us a lot of joy through
Mhm.
those hardships. So
Yeah.
it's like those hard moments that we've been through this year where it is kind of depressing because both of us have been very depressed and very sad through a lot of this year.
Yeah.
I know for me, having our communities and being able to stream and kind of create that escapism environment where I could put all of the bullshit of the year onto the, back burner and really just, have fun with my community, play some silly games,
Mhm.
make some hot characters, and just have like a fun time and be able to not be in that dark headspace. I know for me has been a lifesaver. I mean, I've said it multiple times. Twitch has saved my life more than I would like to give them credit for.
Yeah, no, literally,
I give
yeah.
my credit to my community, but also thanks Twitch for existing, I guess.
I guess. Yeah, like some people know the main reason why I'm taking the break is because of the breakup. Like
Yeah.
it's messed around with me so much that I'm like, I just need to not focus on streaming, not focus on content creating, just like
Focus on you.
focus on me. Yeah, exactly. And just like be relaxing and whatnot. But like a part of the other part of me is like so torn because I love content creating. I love streaming. My community is freaking amazing. Everybody's so kind and so sweet. And it's like majority of my friends I met through content creating, right? So it's like it's kind of like a time in my life right now where I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing?
You are
But
100% doing the
I
right thing.
yeah. Because it's like, yeah, I may not be streaming and like posting TikToks and whatnot, but like Discord is still a thing, you know, like
Yeah.
messages or DMs are still a thing. And I've had people messaging me and telling me, like, giving me sweet messages and supporting me and stuff like that, which has been very kind. Um, but yeah, it's like, it feels weird to not be doing like a happy thing or like the way that you phrase it, because it's literally the same for me, where it's like Twitch has kind of saved my life, my community saves my life kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, to not be doing that because of like this one small situation.
I don't think it's a small
Well,
situation.
yeah.
I don't want you to
this
diminish
this little
the
minor
feeling.
inconvenience.
No, but I get what you mean. I feel like it is a balance though, and being a content creator and being having our lives be quite public, whether we want them to be all the time or not, is that when you're struggling, it also does tend to, even though you do your best to not show it, right? It obviously, especially for the people that are a little bit behind the curtain, right? We see kind of the behind the scenes stuff. It's like you want to always be able to give your best to your community and always have
Yeah.
your best foot forward.
Yeah.
But that can take a toll on itself. And I mean, I've said it on the podcast, I've said it in chats, whatever. Like I am truly so proud of you for taking that step because you deserve to be able to process what you need to process
Hmm.
without being perceived in every way or having to overthink your healing. I mean,
Yeah.
this year I think for a lot of us, and I know a lot of our community and listeners we've had things that we've never had to deal with before from the external global perspective.
Yeah.
Forget about anything that's happened interpersonally, that it's a mess. It's a mess. My alarm just went off. I
It's
apologize. I'm a professional streamer.
it's okay. Panic, everybody panic. Alarms are going off. Yeah, no,
Alarms are going off.
it's there's definitely been a lot going on through like our external lives for sure. Um I like I said earlier, you know, like the relationship that I was in was 2.5 years, which is a really long time. Um, Christmas this year was rough because that would have been like 3 year anniversary.
Yeah.
But I feel like I have to unlearn a bunch of things that I've had to like teach myself during the 2.5 years of the relationship.
Hmm.
Because like I said earlier that when you are in a relationship with somebody, you need to learn to kind of cater to not just yourself, but also to them.
Hmm.
And I feel like it got to a point where I was like, I wasn't giving myself enough love or giving myself what I needed because their problems or their issues were so much more worse that they needed
Mm.
more of the love and stuff like that. And so I've been like, you know, part of my whole healing journey is that like I'm giving that back to myself because I deserve that and
Yeah.
like that's what I need.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you know, that relationship with myself was broken because of a different relationship that I had with somebody else.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, like not saying that it was like a bad thing, that it was like the worst situation kind of thing or whatnot, but it's like when you're not being kind to yourself, how are you supposed to be kind to somebody else? You know, like You could be the nicest person to somebody, you could be super loving to them and stuff like that. But if you're not treating it to yourself, then that's eventually going to reflect on how you treat other people.
As RuPaul says,
If you
if
can't
you
love
can't love
yourself,
yourself, how the hell you gonna love somebody else? Can
can I
I
get
get
an
an
amen?
amen?
Amen.
Let the
Literally
music
though,
play.
it's so true. It is
It,
so true. Like
it's true. Yeah,
truer words have been spoken, but have never been spoken.
exactly. No, it's important, and those balances. I mean, again, it's like you're not trying to be tit for tat for everything, but you need to have the balance when as a core value, in my opinion, because again, you're dealing with, two full humans,
Hmm.
right? You're dealing with two people who maybe see the world a little bit differently or experience the world differently or, have certain interests that the other one doesn't. And it's like there can be a lot of things compatible, but if the core like base of it is making one person not feel loved,
Hmm.
then it's not a good balance, and that takes a toll after however many
Yeah.
months of trying to communicate that it's not
Yeah.
working in that
And
way.
it's like the same with friendships too, where it's like, I've personally had friendships where I would give so much of myself to the other person, but the other person would not give me very much in return.
Yeah.
And, they would only come to me if they had a problem or an issue with something, and that was it. And it's like, that's a really
Yeah.
messed up thing to do. That's not like healthy for you to be dealing with. Because
Yeah.
then it's like, if you're giving all of yourself to that one person, what are you leaving for yourself? Because that person's not
Yeah.
giving you anything in return, and you're not getting what you need from anybody else. Because, like, at the end of the day, I think the relationship with yourself is the most important. Like,
Yes.
at the end of the day, you are the one who could be there for yourself. You are the one who could take care of yourself the best. You're the one who just gets yourself more than anybody else ever would, kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like, if you aren't treating yourself right, nobody else is going to do that for you.
Yeah.
So it's like, it definitely um is a situation where it's like you need to kind of learn to, or things can become a situation where you need to learn to like know how much you give out to somebody.
Yes. Definitely. I mean, it's all in balance and all in moderation, I suppose,
Yeah.
because I know for me specifically with a couple friendships this year, um, I was very much in a place where offline I was still dealing with trying to kind of rehab myself with my chronic illness. I've talked about this on stream a little bit. For podcast viewers, if you don't know, I have a couple lovely chronic illnesses that I deal with on the daily. Really cute, really
Hmm.
fun.
It really
Um,
keeps you very mindful and very demure.
but within the last year, compare like I think about where I was for TwitchCon 2023 versus TwitchCon 2024.
Hmm.
I felt like a very different person just physically because throughout the year I had been actively trying to manage those chronic illnesses that I was not getting help from the medical system with. So I had been dealing with that throughout the whole year offline. I don't talk about it tons online just because I feel like it's again, I use my streams in a lot of ways as an escapism factor. And so I was dealing with a lot of that, plus then having some friendships that I had had for a very long time. Uh, I don't want to say implode because that would then mean that I really was solely responsible. But they had their moment, and I'm not going to deny that I was very firm in my separation of those
Oh,
friendships.
are you okay? Not to be like messy or anything. Are you talking about what I think you're talking about?
I don't know.
I feel
I'm
like you've told me. I don't know how to explain it without like I don't want to call anybody out. Like that's not
Yeah,
the
I'm not
thing.
I'm
Like we're
not
not
name
trying to
dropping. I'm
drop names
not
or anything.
No, no, I'm not trying to be messy. I'm just saying that with those things that I dealt with on top
It was
of
like a
dealing with
social media thing that you kept seeing.
kind of kind of where
Okay.
that
Okay.
person.
Yes.
Um but I had to make certain choices with me dealing with certain chronic illnesses and things going on offline, plus then trying to stream, plus then trying to just be a normal person in 2024. That one of the friendships that I had to separate from this year, I made the choice after kind of just letting it naturally fizzle out, um, that I would then basically just take my hands off the wheel. And if somebody wanted to continue a friendship, then great. And if somebody didn't want to continue the friendship, that the ball was basically in their court.
Hmm.
And this was after, throughout all of the things that were happening in my life, I still was trying to give my 100 to this person.
Yeah.
And that was just not possible anymore. That I had to maybe drop it down to 60, and then I had to drop it down to 40. And I still wasn't getting anything back, so I dropped it down to 10, and I haven't heard from them in 8 months. So, you know, there are those moments this year that I think for me, being in that public environment and dealing with things offline, where it's like if somebody can't even meet you halfway with them showing up and wanting to be a part of your, saying that they want to be a part of your life, um, that they're not going to show up and meet you when they know that you're going through things offline or going through things in your personal life, that it's okay to step back. And that's been a big thing, I think, for a lot of us this year, is just stepping back and kind of seeing what happened.
Yeah. It's I feel like we're the type of people that will always be there for people no matter like who they are. And
Yeah.
kind of people take advantage of our
Yes.
niceness. Like I don't want to like be the person that kind of like labels myself as a nice person, you know? Like I don't really do that to begin with because I can be an asshole. I know that I could be an asshole. But I feel like, you
Oh.
know, at the end of the day we are good people, and
Yeah.
um some people like take advantage of that, and some people take advantage of the niceness, that we kind of forget that nice people kind of just get thrown and tossed all over the place. And so
Yeah.
unfortunately, based off of just like situations that we've had to deal with, we've kind of learned the hard way that we need to just take a step back from
Yeah.
situations and be like, okay, wait, if I stop giving this person like whatever percent of myself to them, will they finally then give me something in return? Not that we expect anything, but it's just like a, are you worth my time kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's been unfortunately something that both of us have had to do, uh, even with the same people, this year, is very much like, you know, putting in what we can when we can, but then also kind of coming to terms with that we're not getting certain things back.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say testing, because I don't like
Well,
having it
it's
be like
also
a
the thing,
test,
like we understand that
but
people do get busy. You know,
yes,
everybody has lives to live,
of
working,
course, yeah,
school, family, whatever. Like any there are situations in people's lives where they do get busy. But it's like, you know, like to disappear for a really long time or like not properly communicate and stuff like that. It's kind of like a, not test, but like helps kind of give like the judgment of, hey,
it
does this person
shows
want to have a genuine friendship with me?
it shows the where the other person is.
Yeah.
And I think something for me is, this year I decided to listen. They showed me who they are multiple times, and I chose not to listen before. This year I chose to listen. And unfortunately, it ended up in a sad turn of events,
Hmm.
but I listened when they told me who they were,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate.
Unfortunate,
But
yeah. But like if you think about it in the long run, is better for you.
oh yeah. No, even though we're not, I wouldn't say we're
I've
thriving. We're definitely doing better.
definitely, yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, okay, this has been kind of a constant thing that has been brought up in conversations with that I've been having with people recently, and I've kind of come to the realization that like I think I talked to you about this too before, but a lot of my friends and myself and the people that I am attracted to are people who always want to better themselves, who are like
Yes.
at a place with themselves where they're good, but they want to always constantly improve and be better and keep
Yeah.
growing and getting to a brand new, like better version of themselves and stuff, right? Um, People that I've met in the past where I'm kind of like not friends with them, might have dated, not in a relationship with them, stuff like that, are just kind of like flatlined. Like they're okay with where they are, who they are, don't
Yeah.
want to change, don't want to improve and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's not me. That's not who I want to be. I always want to do something new. I always want to experience new
Continue
things.
to grow.
I want to continue to grow. Exactly. And so I'm like, like I came to that realization where I'm like, oh, like all of my close friends are those kind of people. I'm that
Yeah,
type of person. And that is like who I want. I want those people in my life.
absolutely.
And so it's like there's absolutely nothing wrong with being like where you are. If that's where you want to be, you are okay with who you are and you want to just like stay there, all the power to you. By all means, absolutely do that. I can't do that. I want to continue to go and work on things
Yeah.
and be a
And
brand new, better version of myself.
yeah, and I really do think that like growth can come in many different forms. Like there isn't one way to grow as a person, but I definitely think that being able to, I mean, I feel like some of the perfect example is literally just like small things. Like we were in Vancouver, we both were like, let's try oysters, get crazy with it, let's try something. I almost died on that bridge. Was I terrified?
Which,
Yes. Did I still do it? Yes.
yes,
You know, like small things that maybe like test you a little bit,
yeah,
expand your horizons, like
yeah.
where you're not just like saying no to something before you've even given yourself the opportunity to try it, you
It's
know?
funny because like with friends, I'll be like respectful about it, right? Where it's like the bridge. If you didn't want to do it, then I would have
Yeah.
been like, okay, totally understandable. That's fine. You can go like sit down or whatever, right? I'll
Yeah.
still go do it kind of thing. And I'm sure like you
Right.
wouldn't mind. If you like
No.
didn't want me to go, then I would have been like, okay, fine, kind of thing, right? But like
Yeah.
if it was like a partner situation and they
Get the
didn't
fuck
want to
out.
go, I'd be like, yeah, fuck you. Like I'm doing
Yeah.
this, goodbye.
No, but I think that also is testament to like the kind of friendships that I mean the friendship that we have in general, but also just like the friendships that I think we have learned to cultivate. Is it's like you want to be in a friendship where you feel safe to like draw your boundary and know that your
Mhm.
boundary is going to be listened to, but also that kind of tests you a little bit, that like maybe you wouldn't necessarily do this by yourself, but the fact that you're with friends who are so excited to do something, it's
That's
like,
like
oh, maybe I'll try that too, or whatever.
that's
Like,
in my opinion, I think is like one of the best ways to kind of experience things. Like if it's
yeah,
something you thought that you would never do, when you have that like close knit relationship with somebody where you
yeah,
feel safe and secure with them, you would be willing to try and do anything, right?
yeah,
And like that is such a cool thing to have.
yeah,
Like I feel like that's
yeah.
a rare feeling kind of thing. I don't know. It's like,
I agree.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna go walk on a very wobbly bridge
Over a
suspended so
canyon.
high over a canyon because that sounds sane and safe to do. But
Yeah,
I didn't think anything of it because I was with people that I trust and like
yeah,
feel so close to kind of thing.
yeah.
It's like the
Same.
first time I rode roller coasters, I was with my friends. We were in high school then. So it was like, I just met these people. They're my high school friends. So I'm not super close with them.
Still,
But like I'm still friends with these people to this day from high school.
yeah.
So it's like that's how much that relationship meant to me that I was like, I am willing to die for these people right now.
Literally. Well, that's the thing is it's like there's so much that is so like I feel like inconsequential to the world. You know, like it just doesn't matter when you're like having so much when you have those friendships that you can just experience life with.
Hmm.
And I this year I know I reflected on past friendships even prior to 2024 friendships of like am I going to be would I get on this damn bridge with XYZ person? Absolutely not. Would I with this person? Absolutely not. You know, and not necessarily that that has to be the only kind of friendship that you have with somebody or the only kind of relationship you have with somebody where you would be willing to push your boundaries that much,
Hmm.
but being able to know that you're doing it, but then also if you don't want to, it's not going to be a problem.
Yeah, like being able to know that you're willing to get out of your comfort zone just a little
Yeah.
because you feel safe and secure with these people is
Yeah.
such a sweet feeling to have. I think
And
like
knowing that if you're not comfortable with something that they will
that,
respect it.
yeah, exactly, right? Like you wouldn't get judged for it, you wouldn't be attacked for it,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like it's such.
Perfect example. At the same place where I almost died, I didn't go up in the trees.
Oh yeah,
I didn't
that's
do it.
right. Yeah, yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, no, I think I'm good. Go have fun. Like I will be cheering you on. Yay.
Yeah.
Like slay friends. But this is my limit. I almost died once. I'm not actively gonna die again. Okay. That's
And we were like,
that's just one
okay,
example.
totally
Yeah,
fine.
exactly. So no, there are many different kinds of friendships you can have, and there are friendships where, you know, you can just meet the balance. There are relationships where you can just meet at a certain point and you don't go beyond there.
Mhm.
And they're valid in their own way. But when thinking of like that kind of close-knit, long-term, where you want to invest the energy, for me, I would always rather be with somebody who wants to challenge, not challenge in an aggressive fight,
Right.
manipulative way,
Yeah.
in a like oh, let's try this new place. Let's go do this. Let's try this. Let's watch this. That's
Yeah.
different than just being stagnant in one spot
Yeah.
and not going further.
Being like brave or daring, you know, like
So brave.
so brave. We're so brave. Oh my
So
god.
brave.
I going back to the oysters thing. We tried
Yeah.
oysters for the first time in Vancouver. Do not eat oysters by themselves.
Oh my
Disgusting.
God. Disgusting. I
I
still feel kind of bad that I made you do it first. I still feel kind of bad. That's on my
I
conscience a
like
little bit.
I don't know. I didn't like it. Just by itself, I didn't like it. But with I almost
Sauce.
called it like tzatziki sauce. That's not it. The seafood sauce, like the
Yeah.
shrimp sauce or whatever, it was so good. I'm a big
I had a
fan.
great time.
Yeah.
I was loving it. But yeah, no, I still feel kind of bad. I'm like,
I'm gonna
I'm like,
see
oh,
what he says or what his
exactly.
facial expression is. Then I'll try.
Well, it was just funny because immediately after we were like, put the sauce on, put the sauce. I was like, okay.
Eat it with the sauce.
You're like, you're gonna hate this if you don't put
Yeah.
the sauce on.
No, I literally looked at you and I was like, do not eat it by itself. Put the sauce on right now.
Yeah. I was like, okay, okay. No, there are so many moments this year where I mean, we've been so lucky to be able to be in person with each other so much this year. I have like
Mhm.
so much gratitude for that and that we've all worked very hard this year to make that happen.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and obviously getting to see our third Jen Frosty in person,
The
you know,
trio.
the trio. You know, like that's so special that we've gotten to be together so much. Um, but obviously I think the fact that we are all in kind of long distance friendships
Mhm.
it also for me because a lot of my friends as you mentioned earlier also for you a lot of our friends are online on Twitch and even though we have community and people in IRL world it's a different kind of friendship too
Yeah.
um and I know it's significantly harder, particularly with time zones, etc., to continue those those friendships. And I'm so grateful that throughout the many ups and downs that this year has had, that we've been able to make the time to see each other in person, but also make the time to stay connected, even
Hmm.
though we are 3 miles away from each other, um, which makes me so sad. It has to be changed at some
I
point because I don't know
know.
if I
Like,
can
why can't
handle
I
it.
just like drive down the street and like pick you up and we go somewhere or
Go
something?
get a
Please.
coffee or
Oh,
something.
I
So
still
sad.
think about that coffee we had in Vancouver. It
Oh
was
my
so
God.
good.
So good.
It was so
So
good.
what was it, a frappuccino?
It was a
Is that what it
frappuccino.
was? Okay.
Yeah, it was like an iced
A
frappuccino, but it was so good.
chef's kiss. Delicious.
Delicious, amazing.
I just missed Vancouver, to be fair.
It feels like such a fever
Everything.
dream. It literally feels like it didn't even happen.
It really does. I mean, like I've looked at the pictures, I've watched the videos. I know it happened. But
Listen, everyone, I literally what song was it that I listened to? I listened to Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince by Taylor Swift the other
yeah.
day, and I started crying. I was like
Yep.
singing it, and then she was like, "It's been a long time coming, but it's you and me.
Tears.
That's the whole world." And I was like giddy singing it, and then I just started crying all of a sudden. I'm like,
Literally me with
"Oh
Delicate.
my
I
God."
think I sent a message in the group chat about this.
Yeah.
So there's a Taylor Swift song called Delicate, and one of the nights that we were in Vancouver, we went to the Swift Alert mastermind party or whatever.
Yes.
And while we were watching the live stream during Delicate, there was somebody in the crowd who was going whoop whoop at certain times in time with the music.
It was
And
so
it's
funny.
so funny. And it started to become like, for us, we were whoop whooping the
Oh
whole
yeah.
trip.
The next day when we
And
went to our show, she was singing
we're
Delicate.
like
We're like
whoop
whoop
whoop.
whoop.
But I was listening to Delicate just like in my house, like I was doing some chores or whatever, and I like, you sing along, you do what you do.
Yeah.
And I was singing along and I did the whoop whoop, and immediately as soon as it came out of my mouth, I started crying. I was this is such a random
Whoop
part of the
whoop.
show. And the whoop whoop is what triggered me. It wasn't even Taylor. It was the whoop whoop that I did myself. It's very, very silly, goofy, but
Getting sad over a whoop whoop.
exactly.
Whoop whoop.
No, there are so many moments from this year where I think even though we've been through some pretty sad, dark times
Hmm.
with different relationships, different friendships, kind of coming to a halt or a close. Um, I keep looking at those moments where I've had really good real friend moments, and I'm so grateful for uh those moments and for the people that made some of those things happen. Because otherwise, this year would have been a real shit show.
Yeah. Yeah, this year, like honestly, for all of the people that we have right now in our lives that we can call friends and have like good relationships and stuff with, thank you. Thank you for being there for us. Thank you
Yeah,
for being around.
thank
Thank you
you.
for being my friend, Estella.
Oh, thank you for being my friend, Wazzy.
2024 would have sucked without you.
It really, like, this year would have been so, so much harder without you. And I'm so grateful for our moments of pure laughter and joy that we've shared this year.
Yeah.
But then I'm also incredibly grateful for the moments where we just sat on the phone and cried. And it happened a couple times,
It has absolutely
unfortunately.
happened a couple times. Yep, that's for sure.
Unfortunately. And I'm also so grateful to know that um, you trust me enough to share that part of you with. And
Mhm.
like that is something I don't take lightly. When I was one of the first people you called after said breakup, like that, even though it
Bawling my
was,
eyes out, being a
yeah,
mess.
which understandably,
Yeah.
like even though it was under unfortunate circumstances, knowing that I could be there for you and that we had that kind of friendship that I already felt, but kind of again seeing it come to fruition in a visual way where it's like you trust me and I know that you know that I trust you. Like that meant a lot to me this year, particularly with knowing how hard some of our other friendships that again and relationships had to stop, knowing
Hmm.
that we found each other through that.
Yeah.
Like that meant a lot to me. Um And going into 2025, we may cry a lot on the phone, but we also have a lot of fun stuff that we're going to be able to do together
We
too.
cry a lot, but we are so
You're so productive.
productive every day.
It's yeah, get it. You can't see it, but we're dancing. What's
Yeah,
new?
we're dancing. We'll do a face
Woohoo!
cam episode
At
eventually,
some
some
point, you're just
point.
gonna
And
see
then
us
you can see
crying and
us being
dancing.
very silly, goofy. Yeah, exactly. Crying and dancing all at the same time.
Um,
Well, I think we will call it here for our episode, 10th episode, which is
10th
crazy,
episode,
which
first
is
episode of
wild.
2025. Thank you
Yes.
to everybody who has been so excited about our return. It's so sweet. We're so grateful and we're so excited to continue with topic episodes
Yes.
throughout this year. We also have a couple fun special episodes planned throughout the year. And we're just gonna continue being our little yappy selves. What's new?
I know. I was like, okay, so we talked about it on the last episode. We're like, we're gonna do 40-minute episodes. And then like maybe they'll go a little over. And I looked at the time, I'm like, oh yeah, we yapped. I didn't even realize. I was like, it's only been like 45 minutes. No. It's been much longer than
Yeah,
that, which is perfect.
yeah,
Because I mean, hey, it shows we just have fun while we literally just
yeah,
talk and yap away about things. So thank you
exactly.
for listening to us and enjoying
Yeah.
our yapping when we talk about things. I'm bad. I feel like I zone out sometimes when I just yap, so I don't know what I truly say on podcast episodes.
Me too. It's called a little bit of neurospicy, but like exhaustion. But I'm always
Exactly
very
that.
like intensely listening to what you're saying.
Yeah. That's what we try to do.
We're doing our best.
Well,
Happy New Year, everybody.
yes, Happy New Year. This episode
Have
will
a
be up
safe.
on the 1st of January, and
I
we'll
hope
see
you
you
all had
all
a
on the
happy
next
and
Wednesday.
safe experience.
Yes. Happy and
You know,
safe 2024, end of 2024, beginning of
20,
2025.
yes. And just the last question: where can they find you, Razzie?
I can be found on Twitch at Razzie Elisa, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram at Razzie Elisa as well. And where can you be found?
I can be found on Twitch, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Kind of Twitter, but not really, but mostly Blue Sky. At Estella M Stone. And we now
Perfect.
officially have our online off-stream podcast, Blue Sky as well. The link is in
Yes.
our link tree, so make sure to check us out over there. If you like all of our silly, goofy graphics, those won't be going on Twitter anymore. They will only be on Blue Sky.
Yeah, we won't be posting those to Twitter anymore. We will only be posting them to Blue Sky because Twitter sucks. So check out our Blue Sky for the little graphics.
Yay!
All right. Thanks for listening to our episode, everybody. We'll see you all in the next one. Bye
Bye.
bye.